Hello all, Rick here with a video covering a non-Federation ship or two, the Malon Fart Freighter, a waste export vessel. There are two Malon vessels that we see in canon, both operated by the Malon waste industry. However, they are nearly identical in function if not specs, so I'm combining both into one video. The Malon vessel was seen in Star Trek Voyager, with the initial design being the smaller of the two that we would come to see based on the design brief of a bulky cargo vessel designed to carry toxic waste. Both were created by Rick Sternbach, with the deliberate use of spherical tanks to increase its mass. It was kept stylistically utilitarian, with inspirations around the front of the vessel to resemble old steam locomotives, billowing their clouds of smoke in a similar fashion to the pollution of Malon ships. So, onto the lore origins. The Malon rely on matter-antimatter reactors to create their power, yet the process they utilise creates a substantial amount of Theta Radiation-laced waste. This irradiated antimatter waste can be broken down and rendered inert by powers such as Starfleet, and many other spacefaring species. But the Malon have yet to achieve this technology. The purpose of these ships is simple: carry the antimatter waste of the Malon civilizations away from their territory and find a secluded spot to dump it. However, in multiple instances, their bureaucracy of this endeavour has led to selfish and damaging effects. For example, the Malon have been offered the technology to clean up their waste, as many others do, but they still operate a highly capitalistic society, and their waste export business is the most profitable one in their society. Because of this, the industry throws its weight behind preventing developments that would drive them out of business, despite the gains to their people that they would see. And thank God that doesn't happen in real life, right? So, these freighters are the backbone of the export industry, and crews aboard are paid a high rate to risk their health by disposing of this toxic substance. Crews are trained up by the industry and can serve for a period of a few months in between their chosen vocation, although there are some who remain career couriers. Those tend to reach the senior ranks and eventually command their own scows. Their form is dictated by the primary function. In this case, the ships themselves are basically straightforward cargo ships with a large underslung bracket system for supporting numerous removable tanks. This leaves them very industrial looking, with little regard for elegance or form. They are not here to be marvels. They are simple ships doing a job, and in many ways share that ethos with many other cargo ships. However, the export industry is also pragmatic and opportunistic, as are many of the commanders of their fleet. It is technically a civilian branch and not militaristic. So long as ships abide by regulation standards, crews are free to modify them. Because of this, their export vessels are relatively unique in what equipment can be brought aboard, and even what duties and courses controllers chart. So long as the waste is dumped and rendezvous kept on schedule, the industry doesn't really care what their ships get up to. This has led to some to use their employment to also engage in salvage and trade of other goods. The two ships that we see are the large export vessel and the smaller 11th grade export vessel. The tank modules are the same on both designs, although the larger vessel has been shown to be able to support up to 8 tanks across 2 rows, while the smaller can only manage 3. We'll start with the smaller grade 11 as a baseline. The vessel is 317 metres long, 195 wide and 92.5 tall. However, these measurements are slightly deceptive. The width is added from the additional towers on the sides, and the height is mostly due to the tanks it hauls. There are 11 or so decks that are inhabited with any consistency, but the lower struts do house simple access ways for tank inspection. These smaller ships had a crew of around 9, but could hold more if needed. It could haul 90 million isotons of matter in tanks that compressed it. It is not revealed how long these ships have been in service, but the similarities in design suggest very consistent ships being churned out, but seldom maintained over long periods. When the ships are launched, they actually have substantial radiation shielding and countermeasures installed throughout the vessel. Their hull, too, is incredibly resistant, making them effective tanks, pun intended. However, Theta Radiation has a corrosive effect, and with the constant exposure over the years of service, these protections eventually fail and weaken. Wear and cracks appear, and soon the ships are leaking radiation at all times. These ships are poorly maintained, despite the efforts of the crews, suggesting that the industry itself offers no facilities for refit or repair of their fleet. The same reactors that power their civilization are at the core of their ships, and despite the pollution they create, they're comparatively powerful. The ships had 3 nacelles at the rear of the vessel, although we have no idea what their warp speeds were. They also featured a powerful deflector array and surprisingly acute sensor system. These are likely overpowered to cut through their own radiation cloud when dumping, and in theory they should be able to locate and withstand all sorts of seldom trod areas of space for their primary mission. Each tanker featured a main bridge control centre and a backup centre deeper in the vessel for more detailed monitoring of internal systems. Both were supposed to be manned at all times. In terms of armaments, there were 12 towers, which could fire anti-proton beams from turrets atop them, and additionally featured spatial charge launchers. Spatial charges are different from torpedoes in that they are essentially slower moving and lack self-propulsion methods. However, they often create a large concussive blast, if not more powerful, leading to a buffeting blast. Quite why these ships were so heavily armed is a little mysterious, as they are literally carrying nothing of value. I'll get back to that in a minute. It's also worth noting that each tower has an overlook observatory. The larger cousin of these ships had a total of 42 decks, but again, only really the top sections of the vessel were inhabited, and the majority given over to storage or access corridors. The crew complement of these larger ships was closer to 100, and it can haul up to 4 trillion isotons. In both of these ships, we see that the crew complement is kept to an absolute minimum, probably in an effort to save money. So, these vessels are utilitarian in the extreme, with even internal lighting only being a required minimum, and their onboard safety features neglected with time and use. Seldom repaired, these freighters may have been built to some safety standard once, but no more. With the hands-off approach of the industry in creating them too, this has led the controllers to conduct some rather nefarious acts while in the process of dumping their waste. Some are legitimate, like simple salvage operations, but many are willing to throw others under the bus so long as they get their paycheck. I believe this is why the Malon ships are so heavily armed too. While this is speculation on my part, I suspect the lack of photon torpedoes or advanced disruptor beams is down to the individual purchases made by a ship's crew. Such charges are likely cheaper and easier to acquire than photon weapons, and I suspect go hand in hand with the selfish actions of a controller that they're prepared to undertake and enforce. The crew capacity of these ships too is very small for the scale, but that's because these are not science ships, not survey vessels. They do one thing, and as such have no other facilities. Their single function, however, does lend them to be unexpectedly efficient battleships, with powerful shielding and above average hull plating. Only their manoeuvrability is really lacking. So, thanks for watching this breakdown on the Malon's freighters. Definitely a distinctive look to them, and the antithesis of everything most starships strive to be. You could not pay me enough to work on one. Thanks again, and until the next one, I've been Rick, and goodbye.